And you're welcome back to the program. Now, starting this year, anyone seeking to be trained as a teacher in any of the country's colleges of education will have to sit and pass an entrance exam before being admitted. It is part of reforms being introduced to improve the quality of education in the country. This afternoon, we have put together a panel to analyze this policy. On his Facebook page, the executive director for the education think tank Africa Education Watch shared the following reactions to the announcement. And I'm sure that you have that on your screens as we speak. This afternoon, we'll discuss all of the concerns that have been emerging following this new policy measure that's been introduced by government. But joining me now via Zoom is Dr. Christian Adaipoku, who is the registrar of the National Teaching Council. We also have Dr. Emmanuel Nyamiche, who's National PRINCOF President. And we also have Professor Nyako Sampson, who's the immediate past chairperson of the National Teaching Council and Governing Board, as well as the Vice Chancellor of the Environment and Sustainable Development University. We also have Reverend Sister Elizabeth Amwako Ahin, who's research lead for the Colleges of Education Weekly Journal. Kofi Asare himself, who's the executive director for the Africa Education Watch, is joining us for a conversation on all of this. Let me first of all, of course, welcome all of you here onto the polls. But let me start off with you, Dr. Christian Poku. First of all, explain to us what is accounting for this new policy measure that we're seeing from the NTC. We're still working the lines to get a stable connection to the NTC, but we can just bring in Eric at this point. What's really your reaction to the policy measure that's being rolled out by government as we speak? It appears that now, if you want to get into the training colleges or the colleges of education, you would require an entrance exam. Will this address the concerns? Will this address the concerns of quality teacher training? What's your take on that?
Hello, Blessed.
Yes, I can hear you. If you could just make the point there.
Right, yeah. I didn't hear you call my name. That's why I'm asking. Well, I think that I'm speaking as an educationist and as immediate past chair of the NTC board. This is just a continuation of a series of projects, if you like, call it initiatives, meant to, as it were, professionalize teaching. Some of these began with the writing of the exams, the professionalization exam and all that. You need to write. There's a big data behind saying that writing is not just an entrance exam, but is an examination in literacy and then numeracy, so that before you get into it, you won't come back after the training for you to say that as part of your professional examination, write anything on numeracy or literacy, because the examination is moving into areas of specialization.
Right.
So if you train in home economics for your teaching or academic work, when you come out, you'll be tested in home economics. But as a teacher, you really need to understand issues of numeracy and then literacy. And so in the starting point, it says that write in order to determine your level of numeracy and literacy, and then enter and work out. What this will mean is also to tell us who really wants to be a teacher and who has the career commitment to stay in as a teacher.
I get the target and the objective that this policy would want to achieve, but how do you react to concerns that we're virtually introducing a two-way assessment for persons who intend to become teachers? You're doing that, first of all, at the entrance level, and then when they are exiting, you are giving them the requirement to also write the teacher licensure examinations. How different will these two modules be for a prospective teacher?
What it will mean is that we are getting those who want to be teachers into the training college to train them to be teachers. And when they come out, you examine them to give them that license that make them work as the professionals. And so it's if you like, we can say it's a very good thing for the teaching profession or enterprise as a means or a way to professionalize teaching.
So what you mean to say is that there will be a clear difference. You will not be subjected to the same level of standard of assessment. I'm talking in regard to the teacher licensure exams and the entrance exams. You're suggesting that the assessment, the mode of assessment will be different for these two sets of examinations. Is that correct?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. It's certainly going to be different. The entrance one is testing you on your knowledge in numeracy and then literacy. And then the licensure examinations is to test you in your area. You know that teachers are trained in various areas. Okay. Some in physics, some in mathematics, some in chemistry, some in home economics, some in basketry, and all that. And so testing you for a license to teach, you should be tested in the area of your training. And I think this is coming from input from the various stakeholders who have sat in and listened to issues related to the results, the feedback from the teacher licensure examination.
It appears that you're not the only one supporting this policy move. Some more aspects are also backing this policy measure. One of them is Mr. Kofi Asari, who's joining us now. He's with the Edu Watch. Also has put up a post on Facebook indicating why he believes that this policy measure must be put in place by the NTC. Kofi Asari, if you're with us, here we are. This is a nation that is struggling to meet the international standard or ratio for the teacher to the pupil. So if we're struggling in that regard, why then would you put impediments in the way of persons who want to avail themselves to teach?
Well, I don't think that this constitutes an impediment in the way of people who want to teach. Let me indicate that one of our problems is not the supply of teachers. That is not one of our problems. We have licensed teachers who are in the system who have not yet been engaged by government. So that is not one of our problems. Our problem is to get well-trained, committed, and dedicated teachers. Okay, so if you want to get the best from the youth, from our graduates, to enter into teaching, you obviously should be concerned about their literacy and numeracy levels, especially literacy levels. As I mentioned, I have reviewed a couple of scripts of various previous license examinations, and I have seen that English, for instance, is a big issue. You know, sometimes you review an answer, an answer sheet, and you see that the quality of English being written is terrible, you know. And these are people who are going to take our case. We must make sure that the best from the system are groomed to go and teach the leaders of tomorrow. And so it is not as though someone is trying to restrict or constrict access to teacher training, but rather, you know, an effort to, as much as possible, get the best people who are very, very comfortable with the basic, language of instruction, which is English, and then also have basic, numeracy skills, and have the commitment, you know, to go and teach, and not just because there's an allowance to be employed at the College of Education, or the person is unemployed and nothing doing, so they just want to go and try and see if they can get something in the classroom doing. That's why this one is a good one.
All right. The post you've put up on Facebook, you seem to question the integrity of the secondary assessment platform, which is WASI. You believe that there's a need for not just the colleges of education, but all other tertiary facilities to begin to adopt the approach that the colleges of education are adopting in this regard. Are you then not indicting the secondary part of our education then for you to suggest that they are not doing something right?
Not at all. What I sought to indicate was that we are seeing a growing trend of faculties introducing entrance exams and interviews before admission. Even though these candidates, these students, have WASI result. Anytime you see a faculty introducing an entrance exam, in spite of a certificate from WASI, it tells you that the acceptance level of that certificate is not complete. If the acceptance level was complete, there won't be the need for a faculty to introduce an entry examination when there is a certification system. We saw a similar one being done in 1999, 2000, 2001 by the universities. In those days, there were various reports of people having fake certificates and all that. So we've seen it before. So the point I was making was that if we continue to spectate the growing levels of examination fraud at WASI, i.e. the regular leakage of examination papers in WASI, what will happen is that the faculties in tertiary institutions will begin introducing entrance examinations because they do not, or they may not 100% fit in the quality of your certificate. And I made the example of a nursing training institute, a nursing training college in Boga, where just 1 year after admission, about 10% of the students failed to go through the first year. Meanwhile, they have good WASI results. And if you are speaking to lecturers, in the tertiary institutions, you will get to hear more about the disconnect between the skills and abilities that students exhibit when they come to tertiary and the results that they actually bring in from secondary. That is why it's important for us to take issues of examination fraud.
I see. Let's bring in Dr. Nyamiche as well, who's on with us. He's president of PRINCOF. What's your impressions there about this policy, and how far should the dialogue go for every stakeholder involved here to understand what it is that government is about to roll out?
Thank you very much. I want to start by indicating that this is not an entirely new project. In the early 90s, when I was with one of the then teacher training colleges, this practice was in vogue. And it is done so as to ensure that we have people who are committed and can go through the training program successfully. But this time, we have a situation where anybody who gets the minimum entry requirements is qualified to come in. Those days when we used to have the interviews, both oral and written, it gave the colleges of education the opportunity to actually determine who is best suited to become a professional teacher. The situation has changed now, and we are seriously having issues with what we tend to get in terms of the students we admit. It's such that you admit students, and as has been indicated by one of my senior colleagues, students who can hardly express themselves properly. We don't want that in the teaching profession. All professionals in Ghana have a system where they are able to determine who is best suited to go through the training that they have. We no longer have that in the colleges of education, and we want that back now.
Right. So moving forward, the engagements have begun, but the teacher licensure, which is one aspect of the entire assessment reform procedure that government is about to roll out, has some challenges. Already we're seeing about 88,000 of the teachers fail that examination, 88,000 actually passing, and the rest failing the examination. And some are even taking it as many as 4 times. So that's the challenge we are, for instance, facing with the teacher licensure examination. Given that scenario and what's happening at the end of the day, don't you feel that students will need some more time for training, facilitation before they are giving any assessment on basic education?
We actually need quality teachers. We're not looking at the quantity, the number of teachers that we produce every year. We want to be sure that if even there are a few teachers, these are the ones who are best suited for what we want them to do after the training they have gone through. So we are not looking at quantity at all. We're looking at quality. At the end of the day, if the person is able to go through the system 4 years, the person writes and passes the licensure exam, then you and I can say that I can entrust my children, my grandchildren into the hands of this professional. And I'm sure it's same with the medical field.
And so
before there, you take to go through exam, professional exam. And that is what we intend to see in the teaching profession as well.
It appears that we're losing you intermittently, but as you address, of course, issues relating to your connection, let's also hear from Kofi Asare as well. So you've heard Dr. Nyamiche's take on this. There are concerns about the kind of failure we're witnessing with the teacher licensure examination. And these are prospective students, people who are yet to be introduced to the entire system in itself. So given that scenario, the fear and the agitation that's happening with the teacher licensure examination, don't you feel that we may have a similar situation happen with the entrance examination?
Once we are able to ensure that they have passed their entrance exam, then the belief is that they would be able to pass the licensure exam. If they are not able, then they need to take it as many times as would make them pass it. And as I was saying, we want quality, not quantity. If there are a few teachers who are qualified and best suited to do what we have trained them to do, then that is best for us. We can entrust our children and our grandchildren into the hands of these professionals. But where a teacher comes in, he's unable to pass the licensure exam, he or she is unable to pass the entrance exam, and yet we produce them as teachers. We are not helping ourselves and we are not helping the country at all.
Reverend Sister Elizabeth Mwankwahini is research lead for the Colleges of Education Weekly Journal. She has quite a good understanding into what all that's happening. First of all, has the research desk of the Colleges of Education Journal, through its monitoring of the events, looking at what's happening on the colleges, have you received any feedback so far on the implementation of this policy? It appears that we're having some challenges there, but Reverend Sister, you'd have to unmute your Zoom for us. We're having some challenges hearing you.
Yes, we haven't done official monitoring as such because the move came only last week. The introduction of the new policy only came last week. But I've had the opportunity to speak to quite a number of principals in colleges of education and teachers as well. And the general picture is that it's a welcome thing for all of them. They all feel that it's a good move, it's a move in the right direction, because it will help to address the entry behavior of people who enter, what do you call it, the colleges of education, which are, in a way, has been a bit of a problem, as Dr. Nyamiche rightly said. So, and we feel that once we're able to address that entry behavior, it will help, in a way, whatever goes on after. That is the whole essence. And so generally, from those who are actually major stakeholders to this policy, most of them they give a kind of a thumbs up, to this policy. They think it's a good move and it should be encouraged. But of course, like any other thing, we have to look at the bottlenecks and the challenges that we have. We have to look at that and address that. But I would say that it's a good move. And I must also add that, yes, I've just taken up this new assignment as the research lead, but I just retired from College of Education as a principal of Ola College of Education. So I have a fair idea of what is going on.
Precisely.
And yes, I have a fair idea.
And that's why I would also want to take your personal expertise on this matter. What are the likely challenges that we're going to face with the implementation of this policy, and what would you advise that the state or the government that takes in terms of an approach in dealing with all these teething problems that may come up?
You see, thank you. As Dr. Nyamiche rightly said, it is not an entirely new something. We have had that before. And because of the challenges that we have, I'm sure that is why it was changed to what we have presently. So I think we have to go back, look at the challenges that we have encountered before, try to address those challenges. And some of the challenges I could see is, the human factor bit. So I don't know. I believe this one is going to be purely computerized. That's what I'm told, that it's going to be a computerized kind of examination. And if it's going to be a computerized examination, my question is, will we have enough computers to do the examination and go the way it should go? That is my first question. And the second challenge that I see is the fact that once we all agree as a nation to go by this, I think the human factor and the protocols and things like that, will also be a challenge, and we should try to address that as well, because we don't want a situation where somebody will pass the entrance exam and the protocol of some sort will bring somebody who didn't pass, that kind of thing. So that would be the main challenges that I can just think right here on my feet now.
Let's bring in Dr. Adayapoko as well, who's with the NTC. Fortunately, he is joining us, and he will be able to provide some more context to this policy that government is intending to roll out. Doc, now, first of all, what's informing officially this position that you're taking, and would you say that you are fully prepared to take off?
Thank you very much. Greetings to all colleagues who are part of this panel. I've seen Professor Nyako Samson, I've seen Yasare and others. I greet everybody. Let's say that the policy is informed by some of the licensure examinations that has been written so far. So far, we've written 7 successive licensure examinations, and the results really show that we're getting between 40 and 49%. Means that there's something wrong with us that need a review. Consequent to that, we decided to see how we can deal with the challenges. And upon a lot of analysis, we have realized that one of this passive failure, or what I would call unfortunate failure of about 40 to 49% of our trainees, might be attributed to the fact that probably they were not fit to actually enter college in the first place. Probably they were not fit. And so no matter how the lecturers try to turn them around, they might not have been successful in that contest. That is why probably they are not performing. Because we believe that every teacher must have the basic knowledge in numeracy and literacy if you really want to teach. And if you are tested on basic numeracy and literacy and you are not passing, how are you going to communicate in class and then get your work done, get the message across to your students for them to comprehend? And then when you finish, how are you able to even deal with your figures if you assess a student How are you going to work on it, work average, simple averages, percentages, and so on, if you are not able to pass basic numeracy? And so we realized that.
And just to, I'm sorry for interrupting, but there are questions here based on what you're saying. There are questions about fairness to those who are prospective students of the colleges of education. You are putting them at the same level just as any other tertiary institution. But their colleagues who will be going into other institutions would not be subjected to the same policy measures that you are rolling out here. How about that?
Yes, their colleagues are not entering into a profession. That's the difference. If you are entering into a profession, your entry requirement might be slightly different from somebody who is going for general education at university. And that is why when somebody wants to train as a doctor, the entry requirements is not are not the same as those of going to do maybe raw biomedical science or any other thing that is not professional. In the same way, if you're going to do nursing, the entry requirement might be slightly different. And so in the same way as a profession, teaching also requires certain basic knowledge that you are supposed to gain to convince everybody that you are fit to enter into the profession in the first place and be trained. And after which we will still assess you to be sure that you've gone through the training properly and you are fit to teach. So there's nothing like unfairness in this. It has been the norm with many, many professions, including law, including medicine, many. And so it's not different with.
So for you, this is more about ensuring standards. I just want you to take a look at this figure that we have on the screens right now. Since 2018, ever since you started rolling out the teacher licensure policy measures, over 123,000 teachers have taken this test. 88,000 of them have succeeded, but yet you still have quite a significant number who are still taking the teacher licensure examinations and are not passing. So that tells you that even the trained teachers are still having challenges. How much more those who are about to go into the colleges of education itself for them to be trained, reformed, so they could impact knowledge?
Well, the figures that you have shown us are the reasons we are bringing these reforms. We believe that basic numeracy and literacy are not things that actually you're supposed to gain while in college. They are things that you are supposed to have before you even enter college. And we want to believe that if they have those qualities, when they enter college, the training should be easy for them. And because most of them, some of these people who have not been successful may not have those requisite knowledge that they need to be able to be trained. That is why they trail in this, or they flunk this test. And then added to that is the fact that if the person has gone through it and has not been successful, it tells us clearly that probably when they finish college, high school, they might have stayed at home, decay might have occurred, and they couldn't get any remediation before they entered college. They've gone through college, and they come back, right, basic numeracy and literacy, which they should have gained while in high school, when they have already left the system for about 3-4 years. Decay might have occurred, and that may also affect the ability to pass.
But I'm sorry, but the teachers you have in the system now, they're also having challenges. And the figures that we've just projected to you shows that clear picture, that even those who you have trained, who have gone through your system, are having challenges. So you would want to be fair to students, people that you are supposed to train to become teachers.
Yes, about 25 years ago, there was no Joy FM in the system, but the system was running. But at a point in time, we realized there was the need to change the system, and Joy FM came into existence. So in the same way, society is dynamic. We have trained people over the years. We have realized that the way we used to do things, that way is not helping the system. And so there's the need to change. If you want to change, the first thing you do is to truncate what is flowing and make sure that you change what is coming in. And probably if you get the opportunity, you reverse what is already in the system. So what we have done is that we have now we are trying to truncate the flow of what is not right, and then we will try to reverse if we will get the opportunity to reverse that.
Right, and I'm glad that you're touching on change. Let me put that across for all of you to get your take on this. How much change do we need in that sector, particularly when it comes to teacher education? Kofi Asare, I'll bring you in shortly, but let me hear from Dr. Nyamiche on this. Dr. Nyamiche, if you're with us, how much change do we need? We've seen a number of reforms. The teacher trainee colleges were reformed to colleges of education. Here we are today. Government is adopting a new entry approach. There were questions even about issues relating to their allowance. So many kinds of reform in that sector. How much change do we need in that sector? I guess that's the question for all of you. Let me start off with Dr. Nyamiche.
Massive change, transformational change, if you want me to say so. Because we have had that situation for quite some time now. And there is a need for us to all agree that there is something wrong with the system, and that thing that is wrong ought to change. And I want to believe that bringing this entry exam back would help us meet the needed expectation that we want from our students. As has been indicated by Dr. Adai Poku, if a student comes into a college of education and has next to nothing about numeracy, literacy, then we have a serious challenge going forward. And these numbers, I want to believe, are so high because we didn't have an opportunity to test them before they came in. And once we're able to do that now, I want to believe that we will get the right caliber of people to serve as professional teachers for the country.
And for you, Kofi Asare, how much change is necessary?
I think this particular change is very, very necessary. It is a quality assurance mechanism, and it will serve a very, very useful purpose. You will realize that if this entrance exam is introduced, you will see an appreciation in the percentage pass in the licensure, because people who are struggling with literacy, especially literacy, will not get to the point of even writing the licensure and fail. And that the best out of the applicants every year to our colleges are the ones that will have an opportunity to go and learn and then get licensed to become teachers. I think once we commit that we are going to run a transparent system devoid of any protocol consideration, purely based on merit, we should undertake, or we should impact positively on the system, this quality assurance measure, and see if the best to go learn to become teachers and get licensed to teach in schools.
You seem to be very much positive about this. You're in the civil society space. Obviously, the concern you've always had with government is about the poor implementation of policies. Is that not, are you oblivious of these facts and these concerns that you constantly raise?
Every policy must aim at correcting a particular deficit in the system. And so if you realize the discussion is around a particular deficiency, it is a low level of literacy among some graduates of college of education, to the extent that they cannot write good English even as licensure, and low numeracy levels of some of them. So we have actually identified two key challenges. Unfortunately, the certification system at secondary level, which should have certified that these guys, by virtue of passing maths and English, are proficient enough in these languages, has a problem, which is our WASI challenge. So you are unable to rely solely on the quality of certification of WASI, and that is why it's important for tertiary institutions, not only college of education, but tertiary institutions, to introduce such measures as quality assurance until we have a system where one can 100% rely on maths and English, in this case, results of WAEC, which will actually speak to the proven abilities or the abilities or competencies that the students will exhibit when they enter college and thereafter. Until then, I think that we need it so urgently, because we need that quality assurance to sieve the best applicants into our college of education to become trainees and eventually get licenses to become teachers.
Professor Nyako Simpson, a lot of water has gone under the bridge. Do we spend time sanitizing the system, or go back and become fixated on prospective students? That's where the government appears to be at the crossroads at. Where should the priority lie? Sanitizing the system that we already have, where there are so many teachers out there who are even having challenges passing the licensure examinations?
All right. Thank you very much, Blessed. Though you have taken me out of the conversation for a period.
Apologies for that.
I think that one of the things to do is what is being done. The stakeholders sensitize the community, get the people involved to understand why you are doing what you are doing, so that it doesn't come as a surprise, something that you are imposing or you are springing on them. I think that it's important for us to know the need to change. So we are really having a change. You ask how much change. Is a change by differentiation. Who are those who are supposed to be there as teachers to enter into training as teachers? Remember earlier I mentioned career commitment. Are they going there as people who are committed to teaching, or they are going there as people who are using teaching as a last resort? So this system is meant to move teaching, if you like, from a situation of last resort to a meritorious one, that those who qualify and who are really prepared to be teachers will get into it, but not those that you want them to be somewhere. So if you are not getting anywhere, if your passes are weak, you are not getting anywhere, can't you get some teaching? So if we say we want to live up to expectation in the teaching realm, or in the realms of professional teaching, then we've got to up our act so that we'll be recognized. And remember, or I should mention that something that is happening this year is the fact that the Africa Federation of Teacher Regulatory Associations have really seen Ghana as one of the giants in professionalization of teaching. And so there's going to be a conference here this year. And so as a country, it's important for us to put our best foot forward. Sometimes it may be costly because you have not engaged the people. Sometimes you engage the people, but you have different views, people with diverse views, people who will obviously understand but refuse to understand, and people who will refuse to understand. So I think that we've got to do a lot of engagement to get the people to understand what must be done and why, most importantly, why it must be done. The numbers you put across the screen about how many have passed over the years. These have even come as a result of having to review the exam almost every year to say that let us do this, let us do this, let us do this. But yet, if you have somebody writing it 4 times, 5 times before they pass a subject, then, as my colleague said earlier, there's something which has got to be fixed before they enter. And so I strongly believe, Blessed, that it is important for us to take that bold step, which may probably have some obstacles or face some objections, but it's important for us to understand, be on the same page, and move to say that this is the teaching profession we want to improve. And this is how we want to improve it, bringing in the quality and then bringing out the quality. So they say garbage in, you're talking about the giggle thing, so that we'll move away from the giggle thing to, if you like, the Kiko thing, quality in, quality out.
Right. Prof, you seem to have a wealth of experience. in the subject area of education, you've monitored what's happened elsewhere. So comparing those systems out there to what we're doing now, are we on the right track?
Blessed, I think we are. We are with what development we are bringing in, and if it's a reform, you are not changing the whole thing. So you bring in as and when you need the change, but gradually you get to the end. So I think we are on the right path. We're on the right path to an end which will be good for all of us. But the important thing is that we all have to come on board. Questions must be asked, issues must be raised and must be addressed. And then as we move on, we look at what areas or ends we need to fix, and then we will fix them.
I'll be finding out very shortly from Dr. Adayopoku what the next line of action will be. But let me bring in Reverend Sister Amakwahin, who's also with us. For you, monitoring the conversation and listening to the other panelists on what it is that we need to change in the sector, what more can you add to how much change it is that we need in the system?
Is that to Sister?
Yes,
guess.
Reverend Sister Amakwahin.
Okay, all right.
Well, it appears that we're having challenges connecting to her. But let me find out from Dr. Poku. I mean, going forward, Prof was just talking about the fact that we're on the right track, but there'll obviously be the need for us to find out what the next line of action will be. Where are we going to from here? Are we likely to see further reforms, not just with the students, with the teachers in the system, but those who are facilitating the training itself for all these persons who are in the sector?
Very much. There are a lot of things happening from 2007 when Professor Anna Mensah's report came in. Ghana has been on the path of making changes to a lot of things, including teaching. And when it comes to education, everybody knows that the biggest elephant in the room is the teacher. If you get the quality of teachers right, you're on the path to improving learning outcomes. And so in 2008, the new the Education Act 778 was passed, and in it was included the professionalization of teaching. And since then, we have been on that path. So besides the initial teacher education, which we are reforming and discussing now, there are a lot of things also happening on the ground for in-service teachers. When I talk about in-service teachers, I'm talking about those who are already in the system. How can we help such that they will consistently be at par? I mean, they will be in tandem with modern trends of teaching and learning. So we have introduced teacher continuous professional development in the system, making sure that every teacher updates or upgrades his or her knowledge from time to time consistently, and making sure that they are able to deliver as expected. So that is already on course. We have started licensing teachers across the country, making sure that people who are fit to teach are the people who are found in our classrooms. Many of such reforms are going on not only at the initial teacher education level, but also at the in-service teachers level. But on this,
how do you react to the suspicion that this is not as part of the control measures that the NTC is adopting to cut down on the number of teachers that we have in the system? You've rolled out so many policies that some have criticized as measures of trying to cut down the numbers and prevent more and more people from using the educational sector as a resort in terms of the high unemployment challenges that we have in this country. How sure are we that this new measure that you're rolling out is not one of them?
Listen, those who always attribute our measures to an attempt to cut down numbers, I would describe that as easy way of trying to criticize what's in the system, because they don't have data to back that. As we speak right now, this year, those who have passed licensure examination, if you put the two last year, 2021, the two cohorts together, about 32,000 people came through. As we speak, Ghana Education Service has been able to employ only 16,000. So if we know that GES will be able to employ 16,000, why didn't we cut down the number and say, okay, 18,000 people have passed, so that it will be easy for everybody? That is not what we do. We want to make sure that we have the right caliber of teachers, not only in the public system, but also within the private sector. If we have enough teachers to fill the classrooms at the public sector, and there are still some in the around, they can also fill the private schools for us. So it is not a control measure against getting many people trained. It is to help get the quality into the system. The days where when anybody, as Professor Nyako Samson said, anybody could just rise and say, oh, teaching is the job that needs the first class students to enter, and not just anybody who thinks that, oh, it's a stepping stone to the job market. So these measures are in good faith to help get the right people who are fit for purpose to enter Ghanaian classrooms.
So I would have your last take, everyone, but just hold on for me. Let's hear from a concerned teacher who I understand is joining us from Kumasi, just to raise some concerns, and then we'll take your final points on this, starting with Dr. Nyamiche. But Doc, just hold on for me briefly. Thomas is on from Kumasi. Thomas, what's your concern, having listened to all the stakeholders express their belief in this policy that we're about to roll out?
Yeah, thank you very much. I've listened to members there, but I think they have not mentioned the fundamental problem that has brought about this poor performance of teacher trainees in our colleges of education. I think, as one of the panel mentioned, the input we get is the same output we are going to get. The issue at stake is about the foundation of our students from the basic to secondary to the colleges of education. That is the major cause of the issue. The type of candidate that enter into a secondary education is a very serious issue. It's a big problem facing the secondary education that need to address seriously. Now, when you write BEC, whether you get the requirement, there is no cut-off point. They are all wholesale, go to secondary school. When you get to the secondary education, these days, there's nothing like demotion and then withdrawal of students. You cannot do it. And if these things, a student in the secondary school who says that after all, whether he goes to the classroom or not, nobody will withdraw me or repeat me. But you and I know that previously we used to repeat and withdraw poor performance. And when the student sees that my colleague has been withdrawn or repeated, it will be a challenge for him to actually sit up and prepare well for the promotion exam.
Okay, Thomas.
But looking at this current educational system, it's very bad. That system is no longer there.
Okay, then. I get your point, to the point that you're making there. But, Thomas, we're very grateful that you've been able to join us all the way from Kumasi. Let's now get your final take on this, gentleman. I'll start off with Dr. Nyamiche. What's your take, your final take on all of these discussions? And also, having listened to Thomas, who's one of the teachers raising his concern about how we don't even have demotions any longer. What do you have to say finally about this, briefly?
Thank you very much. I think Thomas's concerns are what the project we are starting is set to address. He talks about the foundation. How do we get a solid foundation? We get teachers for the basic schools from the colleges of education. So if we do not get the right caliber of students into the colleges of education, how then do we strengthen the foundation he's talked about? And that is why for me and for Prinkov, we think that it's a good exercise to begin with. Once we get the right caliber of students, we get the right caliber because they're able to pass their entrance exam, because I'm not sure the entrance exam is going to be mincemeat for anybody at all. Once you're able to pass the entrance exam, you come in, you go through the training, certainly you would pass your licensure exam. And once you pass the licensure exam, and with your permission, I would want to paint a scenario that the immediate past Minister of Education has always painted. If you go to a hospital and then you're told that this doctor here failed his final exam 4 times, as against the one who wrote the final exam once and passed, which of them would you want to attend to you? Naturally, you want the one who passed the exam once, and that is what we aim at achieving.
For the sake of time, unfortunately, we'd have to hold on with this conversation. Let me give just a minute to Prof to come through with his final words on this. Just a minute, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sure that these changes will need to address the quality from the basic level, and therefore the teachers that will come, we may not see what is there now, but give ourselves 3-4 years. By the time the first batch comes out, we will see that it's really good. So we will address the quality of all what George was talking about from the basic level, when you have a good trained teacher at the basic level.
Well, it appears that time is not a good friend here, but thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. When we return, it appears that you are likely to pay some 30% increment in transport fares if government takes no action. We'll do all of that here on The Pulse. Stay with us. We'll return after this break.